You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 40. This is part 2 of my chat with Amanda Silvas, where we dive deeper into self-love. If you haven't yet listened to episode 39, I encourage you to press pause now and do so first, and then jump back over to this one. Today is all about setting boundaries, how we can be more compassionate with ourselves, and for the perfectionist at heart just like myself, she shares how we can let go just a little bit more. But that's not it. Have you ever wondered what everybody else is talking about when it comes to masculine and feminine energy? I know I did. Well, Amanda breaks it down for us and shares how we can channel our feminine energy when we are living in masculine a little bit too much. This is a jam-packed episode, and I hope you learn as much as I did from Amanda. So grab yourself a cup of organic tea and let's dive on in. You are listening to Love Unplugged, a podcast focused on love in all its forms. I'm your host, Jessica Frigon, hopeful romantic and founder of Project Love. I found that too often love is set aside or taken for granted, and we tend to forget how to care for ourselves and our important relationships in the day-to-day chaos. So let's slow down, tune in, and begin our journey of rediscovering love. From honest heart-to-heart conversations with real couples and knowledgeable guests to deep dive reviews of new products and services that will help you feel beautiful inside and out. If you're looking for relatable advice or wanting to be inspired by real-life love stories, you've come to the right place. Without further ado, let's get to it. So I want to talk about boundaries because you mentioned it before. You definitely have some experience with setting some boundaries now. So with being an entrepreneur, obviously, it's 24/7. And when you're starting a business, people go full throttle and they really just feel so much guilt in, taking time off or, not working in the evening, setting business hours, things like that. So how can we go about setting the proper boundaries and avoiding that guilt that comes along with it?
Well, first, you need to figure out, number one, your values and what your values are at this stage in your life, because your order of your values changes as well. And then also, if you're in business, figuring out your values for your business. And then if you're in a relationship, figuring out your values within your relationship. All three of those pillars are incredibly important because when you get off course or you start to feel disconnected or overworked or burnt out, 100% it's because you're not living in alignment with your values. You've kind of gotten off course. So my recommendation to people is let's get back there. Look at your values. How are you practicing them daily? How are you living them out daily? And then once we figure out those things, then we can start putting boundaries up around them. And I kind of like to describe boundaries as like this castle wall that you're deciding what gets in and what gets out, what has to stay out. And those castle walls are built for a reason and they're protected for a reason. And some of us have like little princesses or fairies guarding our castle walls when we need to have like 300 Spartan warriors guarding our castle walls because we can be so lenient and be like, okay, yeah, and give in. But when you know your value and you know where you want to stay in alignment with, then it's really easy to say what gets in and what stays out. It's really easy to say what's a yes and what's a hardcore no. And when you look at your values and you see, okay, family time, man, I have not been taking some time with my family at all. Like if one of your values is connection, the last time you actually connected with people was like over the holidays, that's a whole month ago. Mm-hmm. We need to get into some connection and be able to practice those things and then being able to figure out, okay, what are these rules and these non-negotiables that I want to create around my values? How do I want to practice them every week, every day? How do I define them? And then building your boundaries and your castle walls around those things. That's the first. And I have basically the outline of all of this. I have a self-awareness starter kit that I walk people through how to build boundaries within that. So that's available. And I know I sent you that link so people can kind of take a peek at that if they're interested. It's completely free. And that'll help people figure out what their boundaries are and to start building their castle walls around what's important to them and what they value. But before we even get there, you got to figure out what is it that you want to protect. For me, I want to protect my relationship with my husband. I want to protect my health, my mental health and my physical health. which is incredibly important right now, especially with this baby. I want to protect my family time, and I want to protect our business in essence. So the ability to provide for ourselves. So when I look at my values and I look at my boundaries, then I build my castle walls appropriately to where I have my me time at a certain time where I'm pouring into my mental and my physical and spiritual health. And then I look at my business. How many hours am I spending on business? And in my hours that I'm spending on business, am I doing income producing activities? Am I doing relationship building activities? Those are what's really important to me within my business. And that's why I say you need to know the values of your business. So when you spend time in your business, you're doing things that matter and that move the needle forward, because a lot of us do busy work and just check off to-dos. And we don't really move the needle forward, and we're not making as big of impact as we possibly can. So then I have certain hours for my business schedule, and same as my husband, and we've agreed on a certain stop time. And then there are certain seasons where it's a little heavier workload than others. And so we talk about those things and we agree, hey, I'm going to work for 30 more minutes. Is that okay? Yes. Hey, I'm going to do this I'm like, yes. And we both agree on those things. Or maybe 7:30, I'm like, you have 3 minutes left to complete that, and then you're done. So those are the things that we've had to talk about. And then in our relationship, what do you value in your relationship, and making sure you're spending time on those things. James and I value growth. We value open, honest communication. We value connection with one another and quality time. So are we putting time and energy towards those things in our relationship when we are together? Are we taking time for date nights? Are we taking time to literally just snuggle on the couch and not talk about work, or not just watch TV or have noise on in the background? Like, all of those things are really important to know, not only when you build boundaries and non-negotiables around things that are important to you, but making sure that you're living in alignment with your values, even in quality time with your husband or your partner, even in quality time when you're working in your business, because that's going to make you feel, it's going to make you feel so darn good. Because you're like, yes, like, if everything that I'm doing, it feels good and it feels easy and it feels doable. And it's because you're living out your values every single day in different pillars that are important to you. So those are a little bit of boundary techniques, but in order to get there, you got to really understand and fine tune those values, and then ask, okay, how can I live these out daily? What are non-negotiables I'm going to set for them? And then what gets a hardcore yes and what gets a hardcore no, and build those walls around it.
That's perfect advice. I'm definitely going to have to do that myself.
Okay, good.
Yeah, definitely. You touched on perfectionism in a prior answer, and I kind of want to dive in deeper with that, because I'm a perfectionist myself, and I've just recently started to let go of everything being just the way that I think it should be, because it's never quite there. And then I'm never quite happy with it. I always want to take it one step further, I guess, and being okay with it just being good.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we get to a more healthy place when we're dealing with perfectionist tendencies?
Well, one, perfectionism is a beautiful thing, because you don't want to half-ass stuff ultimately. Like, it definitely has its place, and it's not saying, okay, let go of all of your standards and expectations now. But it's more of when we carry our perfectionism to an extreme, it becomes our shadow. And this is something that I teach, is we have these certain shadows, to where I have like this nurture and helper shadow, where you may tend to have this perfectionist shadow, where applied in certain aspects is beautiful. But then when you carry to the extreme, it starts hindering a lot of aspects of your life. And so when we look at the perfectionist shadow, and we start seeing like, okay, where are the areas that this is hurting me? Where is this starting to hinder my abilities to connect with other people, my abilities to have a start and end time, my abilities to have a peace of mind, all of those things? Then we can start looking at, what do we need to be consciously aware of? And when we start with perfectionism, it's more of a self-awareness exercise and becoming more mindful of when you're being in that mode of perfectionism and when you're carrying it to the extreme. So the first start is, one, gaining awareness about when you're in that quote unquote perfectionism zone, when you're carrying it to the extreme, when it's actually hindering you from taking the next step because it needs to be just perfect. It needs to be just right. It's not ready yet. When you find yourself in those modes, that's when you almost need to act and do the opposite right away and just put it out there and go against everything in your brain that feels like, oh no, I'm not ready. Oh no, like I can't do this. Oh no. Because it's going to help that you exercise that muscle to just take action. Because perfectionism can stop us from taking action because things aren't ready yet. They're not just the way I want them. And when we start taking action, even when things aren't ready, we start flexing that muscle a little bit more. So that's one technique, is one, being able to get mindful around when you're in that, and two, being able to take the opposite action. Another thing with perfectionism, oh man, there's so many different things, facets that we can go over with this. Perfectionism and overachievement tend to go hand in hand because we want to do more and we want to do better, and everything that we do is not good enough. So we want to always outdo what it is that we did. And whenever we did do that thing and we achieved it, still wasn't enough. Like we could have always done better, or we could have always put more effort in. So part of that is acknowledging the efforts that you did put in. This goes back to, at the end of the day, what are you proud of about journal? To be able to acknowledge your effort instead of acknowledge the outcome. Because as perfectionists, what we do is we only look to the outcome and the achievement. We don't look at our efforts and all of the things that we did do to move the needle forward. And it's not about being this matter of good or great. It's a matter of the effort that you put in. Did you show up today even when you didn't want to? Like every day we have our good and best, or we have our best selves put forward, and each day is so different. Each day, maybe you got hit with news that you didn't expect, and your best that day is like 10%. Great. Maybe you're high on life and your best that day is like 90%. Great. But looking at what happened that day and how much effort did you give of what you're fully capable of? And especially like in the morning, you're going to be different than when you are in the evening. And the ability that you're going to give, and the willpower and the motivation, and all of those things are so fluctuating. And this is why it's so important to have a self-love practice, because you start to develop awareness around that. You start to be a little bit more compassionate with yourself, and you start looking at more of the effort that you're giving versus the outcome. And when you focus on effort versus outcome, you're going to start seeing yourself show up in a completely different way. And you're going to start seeing that you're making bigger, greater impact than you ever thought you would, because we're so focused on it being this one way, this specific way we envisioned as perfectionists and overachievers. And if it doesn't happen, then it's a failure. Or if it didn't turn out that way, then it's not good enough. Where if we look on the effort and we're like, you know what? I showed up every day. I put these hours in, and here's what I did. Here's what I was able to do. Here's how I was able to show up. And I'm proud of that. The next day, do it again. The next day, do it again. And I guarantee you will get further along in your mission and your goal than if you were just focusing on that very narrow mindset of what needs to be perfect right now.
That's such a great way of changing that perception. I love that so much. That's such great advice.
Yeah, hopefully that helps. And I know there's a lot of tendencies, especially as entrepreneurs, to put so much out there and to do so much hard work and so much great work. And at the end of it, still think that we could have done better. Man, we could have reached more people. And we're not even grateful for the people that we did reach. And we're not acknowledging all the effort and time and energy that we did put in. And then we're left with feeling like we have an empty cup.
Mm-hmm.
And we're left feeling like everything we just did isn't good enough. So why try anymore? And then we get burnt out and we get upset, and we don't even appreciate the clients or the business that we have.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. You mentioned before masculine energy. Mm-hmm. So I want to touch on that because I'm not quite familiar with feminine and masculine energy. And I kind of want to have a better understanding of what the differences are and where we should be living in certain areas. I guess, like if we're focusing on our business, should we be more in a masculine energy, or, how does that all work?
Mm-hmm. Well, both female and male balance between feminine and masculine. It doesn't matter if you got a lot of testosterone or estrogen. You got both feminine and masculine energies, and you bounce between the two, sometimes unconsciously and sometimes consciously. Masculine energy is like the very grounding force. It's very focused. It's very driven. It's very one-dimensional. It's very rooted. And it's more of like the get out of my way. I know exactly where I'm going. So I want you to think of like this big boulder, heavy rock that is just going down a mountain, and it's focused, it's driven, it's going, it's got that forward momentum, but it's just very one-dimensional. That's like that one-lane highway. Where feminine energy is very creative, it's ever expansive, it allows itself to ever evolve and to move where the wind goes and allow itself to attract and allow itself to unfold. It allows itself to surrender to the moment and to be present and to listen within. The feminine energy is very beautiful because it's not one-dimensional. It's more of that ever expansive and flows without bounds. So when you combine these two and you move and dance between them, it looks like this as an entrepreneur. When you're in creation mode and you're creating a product or you're creating a service and you're whiteboarding everything out and you're listening to your music and you're going on your walk and you're allowing yourself to get inspired and to create and envision and to think of your clients and what they need and their pain points and their desires, and you're mapping everything out and you put it on a program, you got your sticky notes and you got your whiteboard, that's the feminine energy that you're utilizing. The masculine energy is like, okay, now that I strategized and I allowed myself to do all that, let me implement. Let me focus. Okay, what is my value within this? What's my intention? What's my outcome? Okay, great. Let's focus on that project until it's complete. And that's where the combine the feminine with the masculine can be incredibly powerful, because you've got this expansive creative strategy, and then you bring it to your masculine energy, and it allows it to stay focused and implement the task at hand and go, 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 go. But if you don't allow that feminine energy to come back in and allow you to grow again and ever expand again and reach the next new level and be creative and connect and prosper, you're just going to stay doing the same thing that you've always done in the same track. And where women are feeling a lot of disconnectedness right now is because we've been unconsciously taught by society that we need to be in this masculine energy to get things done, to be appreciated, to go to the next level, to be taken seriously, to be able to run our own businesses. And a lot of the times we're finding this disconnectedness from ourselves because we're living so much in the masculine, and we're not allowing our feminine to flow in, because some people may quote unquote feel this is weak. That feminine is weak, when it's actually the most powerful of the two, because it's ever expansive and will allow you to grow to the next level. Where the masculine energy is powerful in its own way and allows you to tackle the thing at hand and stay focused, but without combining your feminine, you're just going to stay in the same perpetual pattern over and over and over and over again, because the masculine is very grounding force. And this is where women will start to have issues within their relationship, because they're trying to be the more dominating masculine energy when their partner, let's say, is a male, and they're butting heads because maybe they're more masculine, or maybe they're forcing their partner to be in more in a feminine role, and maybe they're not feeling attracted to them as much anymore. And so being able to understand where you're living more of, and being able to understand when you're dancing in between the two, is really important. And so when it comes to a relationship, not necessarily a business, but applying this to your relationship and being able to dance between the two, because your partner has their own feminine and masculine energy. And James and I dance between these two. Like when James is creating a speech or a talk, he's allowing himself to be in his feminine, to imagine and create and think up and envision. And then I tend to be more in the masculine and the grounding force of being like, okay, does this apply? Okay, what's the outcome? Okay, what's the intention? Okay, how do we connect those two? Okay, do this. Okay, take that again. Over and over, we are able to bounce between the feminine masculine roles as it relates to our relationship and as it relates to how we do business together. Because if we're both leading in the masculine, we're going to butt heads. If we're both in the feminine, we're not going to find ourselves, we're going to literally like be floating around wherever and not getting a lot of tasks accomplished. It may feel good and feel inspiring, and we feel like we're going to change the world, but without the masculine, there's like, okay, how are you going to do it? And let's get it done. So that's the difference between the two. And that's how they kind of play in and out of your business life and your relationship life.
That just blew my mind the whole time without interrupting you. I'm like, yes. So I've been right there trying to figure out what is going on with me. I've been in this implementer stage for so long now where, just living in this masculine energy apparently. And I'm struggling so much getting into my feminine energy and being creator.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? How do you transition from the different energies more easily?
Yeah. Well, one is like you're doing the first step is gaining awareness and having mindfulness that you are and have been in just like this implementer bulldozer stage over and over and over and over and over and over. So that's number one. Number two, you need to get yourself out into some nature. Go on a walk to where your mind starts to get into these alpha wavelength, which is also when you're in meditation, your mind's able to get into alpha, which is more of your creative state. So scientifically, that will help you get into more of a feminine state because your mind will be able to start shutting off and become more present. And your alpha wavelength is your most creative state. So that'll help more physically. If you're just like, okay, let me go on a walk and let me just keep walking. Maybe you need to walk for an hour or go on a hike to where your mind can just start shutting off and this higher creative self can start to emerge. That's like the biggest tip I can give to really move the needle forward with it. The next is allowing yourself to get inspired and allowing yourself to become more playful and not so serious, because that's the feminine at play and that's the creative side. And that's just the more childlike, the more childlike side of us, where we need to silence that adult that thinks it's silly and that we should be an adult and we just need to go play. So go jump on trampolines, go for a bike ride, go swim in the ocean, whatever it is that feels fun and feels playful for you. And getting around people that you love, that inspire you, listening to things that inspire you, and allowing yourself to get in creative writing or do things that allow you to tap into this like creative energy. Even if you feel at first it puts you in like a little standstill where you can't really think or you don't know what to do or what to write about, get it outside in nature, go for that walk, get yourself an alpha. I guarantee you some juices will start flowing. Go on a long drive, same thing. When you go on a long drive and you're on the highway and you just kind of black out and you're like, I don't even remember the last 10 minutes of me driving. That's alpha. Those are where your creative thinking goes in. If you're ever in the shower, same thing. Sometimes you get like these downloads or these ahas. That's the feminine energy allowing to come in and get creative. And when you allow yourself to get in that creative and feel inspired, you're going to feel good. You're going to feel connected. There's so many like wine and paint nights. Like allow yourself to go and do like a paint night with a girlfriend. I don't know. I know you're up in Canada. So here they have like these, they're called Pinot palettes or something. And they're like wine and paint. And you go in with your girlfriends and you can paint, like allowing yourself to just play and get into some creative fun, because then the juices are going to start flowing in your business because you're allowing them to start flowing in your personal life. And how we do one thing tends to be how we do other things. And so one thing I focus with my clients, if they're at the very, very beginning stages and they're wanting to be consistent and they're wanting to put themselves first, I have them make their beds first thing in the morning. Something super simple, but it's like how you show up in one little area of your life consistently, compounded every single day, you're going to start showing up in other areas of your life for yourself too. Just by making your bed in the morning. Go on a morning walk for the next week, 30 minutes at least. And I guarantee you're going to start finding yourself having some creative thoughts that are going to feel like, oh, what if I did this in my business? What if I did that? What if I collaborated? Ooh, what about this idea? Maybe I should switch this up. And the masculine is going to be like, but wait, no, you already have that planned. It's on your calendar. You can't move it. You said you're going to do it, so you're going to do it. And da-da-da. Like sometimes your masculine energy makes you feel like you're forcing things to happen and having this super pressure, where the feminine allows things to happen. And when you do that, You're going to start finding yourself attracting clients and attracting business because you're in this ever expansive, flowy state where the masculine is like forcing things to implement over and over and over again. So does that help with getting into the feminine a little bit more?
Oh my God, yes.
Good.
This is like a personal class for me.
That's the benefit of podcasting. You're like, okay, I'm going to ask the questions that I really need right now in this moment.
It's awesome. But I know so many people are going to resonate with that because, I mean, entrepreneurs, you're go, 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 and you're totally focused on the next goal, the next thing that you need to do. So having that good balance between the masculine and the feminine energy is so crucial.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the feminine is like you really have to allow trust and faith to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And something that was really hard for me about a year ago, I was working with a coach that is very more feminine and has a way more feminine approach to her business. And for years, I had been taking the masculine approach. And not to mention, like, I was spending all my time in business with James, who's a guy. So it's not a no-brainer to where most of my energy was leading. And this is why I started diving into this, is because I started noticing the differences. And I wanted to become a little bit more feminine and lead more in abundance and attract. And when I started working with this coach, I butted heads with her so bad. So bad, because she was wanting me to allow things and like we weren't really planning much, and it made me stressed. And it really stressed me out because I was like, where's the strategy? Where's the implementation? And she was just like, I'm elaborating here. She was wanting me to be able to trust within and attract clients and work on the inner work. And I'm like, okay, but we're not talking about any sort of strategy right now. Implement, give me the platform, tell me what to do, what's steps A, B, and C, and D. Like, this is why I hired you. And
Mm-hmm.
it was so challenging for me to start being able to lead more from a feminine role instead of a masculine. And it was so hard for me to realize that I had trust issues with myself. That if I trusted this person, then like if I actually leaned in and trust this person, like what would happen? Was what she said she was going to happen really going to happen? Like, I know if I have a plan and a spreadsheet, then that's what's going to happen according to plan because I'm going to push it and force it to happen versus this allowing. And my gosh, it took a while for me to really peel back those layers. And it's something that I still am mindful about as well, of when I'm forcing things to happen and when I tend to find myself in more of a scarcity mindset and allowing myself to come back and to trust within and surrender that and a lead from a place of feminine power. And it's so funny because the DMs start going through again. And it's a whole nother world. But in the beginning, you're going to feel incredible resistance to it because you want to know,
Mm-hmm.
especially as a high achiever, perfectionist, or your numbers, like you're going to want to know. But you'll find your own strategy even within the feminine of being like, okay, this is what I do. This is how I show up every day. And this is what it looks like right now. And it organically starts to unfold in the most beautiful ways. And you'll know it when you're experiencing it. It's very different to intellectually know something versus experientially know something, like deep rooted, like, okay, this is working. Okay, I'm showing up for myself. Okay, I'm doing this work. Okay, I'm doing that. And these things are starting to unfold. And then the second we question it and the second we have doubt, it unravels back in again. It's this dance around being able to trust. The feminine is really the trust and the having faith that like what you're creating and what you're putting out there is going to be received. And when you trust and you have faith, you start to attract because you're living from a place of abundance than the scarcity mindset.
There's so many aha moments right now. It's brilliant. That sits so deep with me right now.
Good.
The last time we talked, you said something that just blew my mind because I had been searching for so long the right way to look at balance, right? Balance is just such a funny word. Really, there's no balance, really. You can't achieve true balance in the majority of things. So I want to kind of hear your perception of what balance is and the right way to look at it.
Oh, balance. It's so fun. And I use the word because most of us have the understanding of what we want in our life is balance. But if you were to ask me, I would completely supplement that word with harmony, because I think balance is such a facade, and it's more of a masculine term of giving 10% here, 10% here, 20% there, whatever it is, and giving it a monetized number, where I like to use more of this understanding of harmony, of being able to tune into you and find, what do you need in this moment? What do you need in this season? And being able to dance more in this harmony of what you need for yourself versus like balance, and trying to fight to have this equal number or this equal percentage amongst all the things going on in your life. Because it's going to change. You change, you go to the next level, different things emerge in your life, new chapters, new seasons of life, and you're going to need different things. And then you're going to find yourself being like, oh, so stressed because your balance numbers are going to need to change. Where if you allow yourself to take on this more concept of harmony and tune within, this is where the emotional self-love work kicks in, because you'll have to allow yourself to feel what it is that you do need in this season or in this day. And the harmony is like, okay, well, maybe in this season right now, I'm feeling really good and work is doing really good. But, the world's telling me I need to stop at 5, where I'm feeling really inspired and I want to create and I feel like I could go all night. Lean in, go, do it, because those creative juices aren't going to last forever. I say go and do it. Like, if that's what's calling on you and it's that intuitiveness inside, do it and work until you feel like, okay, I feel good. That feels good. Now, maybe right now you're like, I feel burnt out. I feel like I've been forcing everything to happen, and like part of me really wants to just take some extra days for sleep or take some time off, but I can't even imagine taking time off and not being able to answer my DMs. My business is going to stop. It's just like being able to tune in to you and find, what do you need right now in this moment? What do you need right now in this season? Because that's going to be the harmony dance. And it's going to help you be able to sustain over a long period of time, because the balance is a facade, and you're going to start to feel like you aren't accomplishing your balance, quote unquote, goals. And you're going to kind of feel like this failure because you're not being able to make all areas work. And then you're just going to say, well, screw it. I'm good at business, so I'm just going to keep focusing on that. And then maybe your self-care suffers, maybe your relationship suffers. And then you find yourself back at this point of being like, oh, I need to focus on these things. And I feel so bad that I'm not making them happen. If you tune in more to you on what you need in this moment, in this season, and find your harmony with it, like I said, you'll be able to sustain longer and you won't feel that burnout. So lean more into this harmony of feeling what you need in the season and in this moment, versus the giving this monetarily, I need to balance everything and 10%, 10%, 10% sort of thing. Because you'll just drive yourself nuts with it.
That's such perfect advice, and it's just the best way to look at it, in my opinion. And I'm so going to be using that word going forward. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, like there's going to be times where, especially as you start to lean into your feminine, you're going to be like, gosh, I just really need a girl's night, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the other side will be like, oh, well, you've got all of this to do. And you're just like, I can't imagine taking time for this. It's like, no, that's when you need it. That's when you need it. You're like, oh, I feel like maybe I need a walk, or I need it. Like, those things come in for a reason. Those ahas, those epiphanies, those thoughts come in for a reason. And I've stopped not listening to them now. Like, I lean into them. When I feel those moments come through, or I feel those signs, like, I feel like that's my higher self telling me what I need in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like Monday, it was a Monday night where I was coming home from something or another, and I called James and I said, I feel like we just really need a date night tonight. I don't know. I just feel like I need it, and I just want to connect with you, and let's just, let's go for a little date night. Doesn't need to be anything crazy, and let's just be with each other tonight. Like, no work. He was like, okay. It wasn't planned. It wasn't, quote unquote, on our balance sheet for all of that stuff. But, typically, date nights are on weekends or something. But I don't know. It was just, I was feeling it. And so I leaned into it and I made it happen, where before I would have thought about it and then I would just let it be a fleeting thought and not act on it. And then I would feel disconnected. So that's
amazing.
a little example of how to lean in when you feel like those little thoughts come through.
There's definitely a reason why they're coming through. So it's just listening to them, listening to that inner voice, just telling you that you need something.
100%.
So I want to talk about this pregnancy. I'm so curious. So how has this journey been like for you? Like what have you learned about yourself that you didn't know before going through all the body changes and maybe the emotional aspects of it and maybe some fears that, of giving birth or afterwards and what that entails?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be completely opposite of what people would think, but I learned that I am so ready for motherhood. I learned that I am not scared in one bit for that I'm about to have a baby. Like, if anything, because I've been practicing being so connected and so feminine this whole past year, it's no wonder stepping into that and embracing that feminine and that creation that I had. And if anything, it's made me realize like how much I trust myself and how much I trust my innate abilities, and that I am a nurturer, and that it isn't a weakness of mine, that it's an absolute strength, and that I'm going to love on this community that I've built for as long as I can. And when this baby comes, I'll set up things to where I can still love on my community, but I'm going to love on that baby even more. And I found myself, I have always been emotional, like when it comes to movies or commercial, like I'm that girl that cries at everything or just tears up. So it's been even like more emotional now, and I just get more sentimental, and I'm just loving life in a whole new way. I don't know if it's because I'm growing life, but I'm just out on my morning walks with my dogs, and I'm just like, I love my life, and I'm so grateful. And it's only when I really surrendered over that everything's going to change and that it's okay. For a minute, I was forcing how things are going to change and look in my business and not embracing it and trying to figure out, okay, what's plan B? How can I set this up? And do it all systematically and masculine again, when I had to take a step back and realize, whoa, everything's going to be fine. You're going to grow into a whole new level. You're going to evolve. Like, it's all going to work out as it should, and it's going to be fine. The most important thing is that you're taking care of you, and you're taking care of the baby, and everything else will emerge and happen in a way that it needs to be. And so don't worry about forcing things to happen. Just lean in and nurture. You're following the same way that you would nurture your baby. And like for me, that shifted this mindset of just love, 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 instead of being strategic with my systems and my launches and my programs and It's just like love, love, and nurture and mentor and just pour that out. And I have seen such a dramatic difference in the way that people communicate with me, and in a way that people communicate with me via DMs or emails or voice memos. And I'm just like, wow, am I getting through to people in a completely whole different way? Is my message resonating in a whole different way? I don't know. I just know that I'm leaning more into love and nurture mode than I've ever leaned in before. And I'm not using my spreadsheets as much as I ever have. Yeah.
Well, people are probably picking up on that energy. And I mean, I can feel it when you talk about your pregnancy and, where you're at in life, that you are coming from a place of love. It's very heartwarming to hear you talk the way that you do. And I'm sure people are just gravitating towards that.
Yeah, I mean, something that's really important to me in my business and an individual goal is just being genuine and authentic. And for me to be able just to share this with the people that I come in contact with, and just being able to pull back the layers and be like, here's what it feels like right now. Here's what I'm going through. And just being able to share that. I've noticed more mamas to be following me, or recent mamas, and being able to even understand what it's like to be a mom even so early on. It's given me more compassion and more empathy for putting myself in other people's shoes. Like, I just care more at such a deep level, and I had no idea that that was what was going to emerge from it. If anything, I was like fighting this new chapter for a moment last year because I couldn't plan.
It's hard to let go of planning.
It is. It's so hard. You're just like, hey, let's plan out 2020 and let's goal map and this and that. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, or B. And as soon as I allowed myself to just strip back the planning and was like, how am I going to show up every day? What's that intention? Love, nurture. Okay, great. Everything else has started to unfold in a beautiful way, because at first I was more in fear. And you can't be in fear and love at the same time.
That's so true. Well, this has been amazing. So if anybody wants to learn more about you, where can they connect with you?
Oh, Instagram is the main for sure, at @Iam_Amanda Silvis. For some reason, every other Amanda Silvis combo was taken. So it's the @Iam_. And then I always post photos with my husband. So if you want to follow him, it's James Silvis. He's pretty cool. And we do some things together and stuff. And then I have amandasilvis.com, and all of the resources that I talked about today will be on there as well. Doing a self-love challenge in February, the week of, if this happens to go out. Would love to have anybody that I can support along that journey. Or I have a self-awareness starter kit. It's like a 5-day mini course for free as well. I just want to give people, honestly, these are some of my best stuff that I give away for free, because I just don't want there to be any excuses for people not to have the tools. So I have a lot of good freebies on my website too.
I'm definitely going to be sharing that, as well as the challenge. I might even participate myself because it sounds amazing.
Oh, good.
So thank you, Amanda, for being my guest. I'm truly honored to have you share all of this experience and the knowledge that you have with me and with my community. So thank you so much for taking the time, because I know so many people are going to resonate with the information that you've shared today.
Well, thank you so much for having me and for reaching out. I've enjoyed our time, and if there's any way I can support, please let me know. And I'm always available. Anybody can DM if they have any questions about the things that we talked about too.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.